Tech-led disruption, evolving regulations, and rising expectations from a multi-generational workforce, talent strategy is being forced to move beyond routine processes to long-term value creation. In today's conversation, we're going to explore what this shift looks like in one of the most performance-driven sectors. Joining us today is Manoj Kumar Chaudhary, CHRO at Edelweiss Asset Management, and Jyoti Dadlani, Regional Head, West India at LinkedIn Talent Solutions. Thank you so much for joining us, both of you. Together, they're going to examine how long-term thinking translates into people's strategy, how organizations can balance data with human judgment, and what it takes to build a resilient, future-ready talent workforce in a high-stakes, fast-evolving environment.
So firstly, absolute honor and delight to be part of this forum. Thank you, Shing and Jyoti, for
Pleasure to have you with us. Looking forward to the conversation that both of you are going to have here today. So over to you, Jyoti, for the fireside conversation.
Thank you so much, Shireen. So Manoj, I'm going to start a little bit to understand. So of course, the mutual fund industry speaks about long-term thinking, disciplined decision making, for investors and overall, if you look at it in terms of consistency, right? So that's what works for the industry. I'm curious, how does this philosophy that is there operate for you from a talent standpoint? Like, how do you think of this internally?
So if I have to see from a long-term standpoint, and when it comes to say a culture or talent, I think broad one-line definition would be that you hire good people, give them good experience, which ends up in good results, and ultimately which can be measured by the longevity of the people.
Okay.
So if you ensure that good people are there and you give them good experience, and as a team, if you're able to create good results out of that, I think that defines long term. And as I said, ultimately you measure it through longevity of the talent out there.
Yeah. And what does this mean from a leadership capability perspective, right? So you obviously have, the long-term focus. What does that mean from a leadership capability building perspective?
So again, if you see, it's broadly that if you are thinking from a long-term standpoint, right? I always say that a short-term mindset, if I look at hiring, it is that you hire for a particular skill, right? You hire for requirements of a job. But the moment you convert it to a long-term, right? Any leader who is building a team will not focus only on the skills which are required for a short term, right? But would look at more larger attributes, right? Like for example, how much is the person is curious to learn, right? How is the decision making of the person? What kind of experiences the person has navigated so far, right? So the lens with which you hire changes. Same I'm saying once the person joins, right? The kind of experience which you would want to give, right? And I always draw this parallel, right? Like for example, in our families at our home, a lot of things they are long term only. There's no short term out there. Right? So for example, जब बहू घर आती है, right? As a family, you try to give the best experience.
Yeah.
Right? Now, same thing as I said, as leaders or as an organization, you would want to give the best experience to the person who is joining in.
Yeah.
So a lot of these things, right? The way your appraisals are designed, the way your employee processes are designed, they will all keep this in mind that how the long term is managed out there. Right? From a leadership standpoint, again, the lens, as I said, there needs to be a vision out there, which the team is trying to do. A vision which is supported by very strong values out there, right? Which needs to be lived in, day out. You role model those values, and which is ultimately what people started following.
Yeah. No, very, very, very well said. The long-term value creation has to be both external as well as internal. Shifting focus, that in general, I think your industry is very driven by data, analytics. And of course, digital, right? I'm assuming if you look at platforms as well. How do you cultivate talent that can leverage data without losing judgment, right? The human element that you spoke about, the curiosity, the decision making. So how do you cultivate that so that they keep the judgment, conviction, and accountability on, and not really look at short-term wins versus long-term focus?
So the very clear fundamental is that data is ultimately an input out there, right?
Yeah.
For example, if I take hiring as a process, right?
Yeah.
You have resume as one of the data point. You will do interview, that is second set of data points. You will have a psychometric, which is the third set of data points.
Yeah.
Like even after you have all data points out there is a decision of ultimately taking the final call,
Yeah.
and which comes from the context in which the company is right now, or
Yeah.
the context in which the individual taking the decision is right now. Right? So that is an important aspect when it comes to looking at data, right?
Correct.
Second important set is, and which again we try to build in very early in people, that across Edelweiss you will see at any given point of time there are multiple projects which are going on. Now these projects are in a way to give exposure to people, and there will be certain decisions which are supposed to be taken as part of the projects, right?
Yeah.
Now you take those small decisions at project level, and ultimately when you are in the positions where you're supposed to take larger decisions, I'm saying these decisions enable you because you've looked at multiple scenarios and have looked at. Third is a lot of times we transparently share also with our people. This is how we decided about a particular thing. A lot of learnings come out of those conversations also, where leaders talk about that. What was the framework which was used to decide, or what was the exact thought process while deciding particular thing. When it comes to investments, there are robust processes out there which enables you to take a decision, but ultimate accountability of the decision lies with the person.
Okay. No, I think very, very well said that the context is extremely key. I think we often say that from a LinkedIn standpoint, right? There's so much data, what you do with it in the context is what matters. So I think extremely well articulated. Um, I mean, a lot of the things you spoke about from a hiring standpoint spoke about more of the human element. So do you see a lot of, talent coming in, which, not with the same education, not with the same experience, the typical, we tend to look at more of bringing the same people in from the same industry, uh, because it's also a small industry, so we tend to see that. So do you see a lot more skills hiring happening? Do you see that evolving? Are you hiring from different industries? Do you attract talent from different places? How do you see that panning out?
So for us, and we but the term we use is, we say that we want diversity of thought. Right? Now, this diversity of thought might come in from different industry or might come in from same industry.
Okay.
So a lot of focus, if you see, when we do conversations with people, is in terms of getting to know about this, right? Like for example, uh, can you challenge a particular decision, right? Can you bring in a different viewpoint or angle to a particular discussion, right? So these are very important elements. And one more thing which we do differently, right? Because a lot of these things, if you see, they are time taking. It's not a simple plain vanilla interview process where you did interview one of 20 minutes, a psychometric, an HR round happens and the position is closed.
Yeah.
For us, a lot of hiring is proactive hiring, right? So leaders across the organization, they keep on meeting people. And a lot of our hires, like maybe we met them 18 months, 24 months back, and then hired them after that period of time because we felt that the person will add value. And whenever we have the right opportunity, we hire the person.
I
But
love that.
diversity of thought is the key, right? We want to have people across teams who can bring in that diversity of thought. In fact, if you see the meetings which we have, whether it is new projects or even the reviews which we have. So if a tech review is happening, you will have people maybe from a sales sitting out there, maybe people from compliance sitting out, because those are the people who are looking things from a different lens altogether.
No, I love that. And of course, talent is always scarce. So I love the fact that, you look for those attributes and it could be from anywhere. And I love the fact that leadership is proactively meeting people. I think that's every manager's dream come true. So I love that they're meeting people proactively. And
And
I'm
thanks
hoping
to LinkedIn, Jyoti, it
I,
makes it
I'm hoping that
it,
LinkedIn's
it
a
makes it
platform they use.
easier.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's employer brand in motion, right? A lot of people put up these fancy things, but for me, that's employer brand in motion. If leaders are doing that, it just shows the authenticity. It shows the openness to want to meet people for the right opportunity. Because you may not have that immediately, but the fact that the company is invested to build that pipeline, I think it speaks volumes. So thank you for sharing. Of course, it's also an industry, with a lot of regulatory changes, new asset classes, digital distribution itself reshaping. So how are you kind of approaching upskilling? How are you approaching getting people along with the change and really investing in making sure that they understand current capabilities, future capabilities required, both evolution of the way business is done, regulations are happening, and how even your focus might change over the next 3 to 5 years?
So one, I think there's an inherent DNA, right? And that comes from the kind of people we have, right? The way we are designed as an organization, the way, the kind of behavior you will see from leaders out there.
Yeah.
Let me give a simple example, right? Any point of time, any new thing comes in, right? Whether it is a new regulation which has come in, whether there is any macro news which has come in.
Yeah.
So we as an organization, we don't wait for a formal meeting to happen to discuss that, right? The moment it comes out, you will have somebody in the group pointing it out, and then there's an natural discussion which flows around it, right? That what does it mean for us? What can be the implications? What can be some of the solutions, right? And there is no time to it, right? Sometimes it's happening at 6 in the morning, sometimes it's happening at 11 in the night.
Yeah.
And this is not a formal requirement per se, right? This purely comes from because people love discussing it.
Yeah.
Right? If somebody is discussing at 11 at night, it
Yeah.
means that it's a natural joy which the person is getting out of that discussion, right? So that inherent curiosity is there, right? That inherent love, that what implications it might have for Edelweiss, let's
Yeah.
discuss it out it right now only, right? So that is one thing.
Yeah.
Second, as I said, like for any topic, if you see, like for example, say when it comes to say if it is something related to compliance or something related to
Yeah.
risk, there is a natural set of people who have affinity to that particular area. So that core groups comes around and then discusses it.
Interesting. And do some of these volunteer, like getting external, external trainers, external, you know, people to come and really train this, or is all of the solutions internal mostly?
No, so we will have like areas where you need subject matter expertise, where you need
Okay.
people to come from outside and speak to you, right?
Yeah.
In fact, like we have for our investment folks, we have this forum which is called as Word of Wisdom. Hmm?
Word of it. Okay.
Where what people do is like maybe we'll talk to a fund manager from a different asset management company,
Oh, lovely.
understand how are they looking at things, what kind of processes they follow. So a lot of cross learning from different people in the industry where we also go and maybe speak to them, right? We try to learn from our distributors, our clients also. So we do a lot of events for them.
Yeah.
So upskilling for us is not limited only to our employees. It also extends to our distributors as well. So we have a team in place which will go and train the distributors also. If a new product has come in, to train our distributors so that they can sell in the right manner the right product to the investor. So a lot of
Yeah.
those interventions will do happen at our end.
I know you shared an example with me of the cluster learning as well. I'd love for you to kind of elaborate on that. I think it's fairly unique, so I'd love for you to share that as well.
So when we thought about creating a learning organization, we were very clear that it can't be only about number of learning programs or number of learning manners for an employee. We said that it has to happen in a natural manner. And that's where we started asking some of the tough questions. What are the ways to make it happen? One of the relation was that the structures in most of the organization, you have different department, then there are department heads and who reports to maybe a CEO or CEO minus one. We said that can we create certain clusters? So we have different clusters in the organization. For example, a product marketing digital is one cluster for us, which comprises of product people, people from marketing domain, and people from digital. So this has worked really well for us. Like we started with one cluster, but that cluster really flourished, and we said that let's have more clusters in the company. So has worked really well, right? And like what it made me think as an HR professional is that there are a lot of times things which are like beyond like what we normally think, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of these natural elements, like whether it is org design, the construct, the architecture which is there, when you start attacking a lot of your problem statements through that architecture, I think magic happens here.
No, I think very well said, right? Sometimes you have to break those silos, and maybe the purpose of it was obviously to think of learning, but I think you've unlocked like, building that internal talent pool, just internal mobility, just the natural flow of, someone who's learned on the job, shown up that experience, and can become a natural fit for another role, right? So I think that's a fantastic share, and that's built in the DNA of the organization. I mean, from one cluster to multiple clusters. Of course, I understand from a performance standpoint, financial services in general is a high performance culture kind of a thing. But how do you build that culture that sustains that performance? So sometimes, you don't have that time for that learning or time to invest in doing that. And so how do you continuously encourage that sense of curiosity, collaboration, through the ups and downs, through the cycles that happen? So how do you keep that performance culture as well as encourage that collaboration, learning, and the time to give to those kind of things, especially during those ups and downs?
First and fundamental question which comes when
Yeah.
we talk about a performance culture is what exactly performance means. Now, in my experience, I have seen a lot of times if you go and ask people, right, if you ask them that, okay, what performance means to you in 3 bullet points, or
Yeah.
3 things which you achieve, which means performance for you, a lot of times these answers themselves are not clear.
Yeah.
That is one. Second, maybe you will get answer from an employee on that particular aspect that, okay, this is what I'm supposed to achieve. But the moment you ask the person that what as a team or as an organization you are trying to achieve, again there will be question marks or there will be no answers out there. So it's a continuous process, but we have tried to attack that, right? That what exactly performance means, and we call it as defining performance.
Mm.
A lot of times there's a time lag. So your so-called performance appraisal starts in the month of April. You follow a financial year or a calendar year.
Yeah.
But by the time the person gets his or her KRAs, it is
Yeah.
already 1 quarter has passed by.
Correct.
Now, those are, I would say, inherent flaws in the system. So we have tried to target that.
Mm.
What we do is we define performance very clearly for all our people.
Mm.
It happens by 31st March. So by 1st April, KRA's goals for all the people are already in place.
Correct.
All our leaders, they spell out their KRAs, and this is communicated to all the people, starting from the CEO to a sales head, to a risk head, to HR head, that what exactly as an organization, as a department, as a cluster, we are trying to achieve.
Mm.
So people know across that what is happening in the organization. Now, once the definition of performance has happened, there are two more aspects to it. There needs to be a lot of discussion around performance, right? So, for example, in your cycle, time will pass by, right? So, what exactly is happening on those front? Are you achieving those numbers? Are you able to complete those projects? Or if you're not able to complete, what is happening? What is not happening? Those kind of discussions are very important. So, which is the second part of it. And when this discussion happens, sometimes you will find things which we call as the element of development, right? That there are certain things which needs to be developed, which might mean you need to develop a particular system. There are certain processes which needs to be developed. There's a learning need which is out there. So that is the third D. So I call it as the 3 Ds of our performance management system. You define performance, you keep on discussing performance, and you develop wherever you need to develop, you develop it. And the last is what we call as the R, right? That ultimately, if you have done what was asked to be done from you, what is the reward which is there?
Mm.
So yeah, that is the process we follow, or the kind of system we follow, which I call as D3R: define, discuss, develop. And then once everything is in place, how do you reward people around it?
I love it. It almost sounds like a new Star Wars character. From a human resource standpoint, we're seeing this where, it's helping people map skills, hire faster, put more method to the madness. From a learning standpoint, we're seeing how that balance of personalization and scale can happen because, the one size fits all may not work. Everybody likes to learn differently. Everybody has different areas to want to learn. And of course, we're seeing a lot of time being saved and agility coming in. How are the clusters in your organization thinking of AI? What are you working on at the moment? Is there some upskilling that's happening on AI? How are you thinking through it? Are there some teams that have adopted early? I'd love to know how you're kind of thinking of it.
So there's a lot of excitement, I must say. And I think
Wow, that's great to
if I
hear.
look at last 24 months, I think fantastic excitement across teams, right?
Yeah.
I think every day you will hear stories where magic is happening in one corner, right? Like I remember my CIO coming and telling this to me and Radhika that you know what I did. I gave this media interview. It was a 20-minute interview. I put it on the tool and I asked feedback that how actually I did on the interview. What are some of the things I need to improve, right? And clear wow for us, right? That how you can leverage AI
Yeah.
for your own growth. Apart from this, so we targeted some of the basics of AI, right? Which was the first and foremost skill we focused on was that what exactly this animal called prompt is. and how do you go about, is there a formula to writing a prompt, how do you write better prompts. When we did the skill workshop, we also realized that ultimately how do you treat an AI tool, right?
Yeah.
How much you trust, how do you ask sharper, better questions to get better output, right? So this was the first skill which we learned, right?
Yeah.
And after that, if you see, the focus has been more on experimentation. So across teams, whether it is legal, whether it is investments, you will see that there are different tools which are being experimented on day in, day out basis.
Lovely.
Then basis their use, we are trying to see what makes sense to us and look
Yeah.
at. But two, three questions we are very clear on. One is that if we are using or experimenting a tool, what kind of outcomes we are expecting,
Yeah.
what exactly will it save for us, and and third is like is there a better alternative than this? So AI I am looking for is that how do you find better humans?
Find better humans.
And we keep on having these conversations internally also, right? That
Yeah.
while we focus on building technology or maybe buying technology, I think the re-emphasis on the human aspect is very, very important, right? And you want those skills to be there as well, right?
Yeah.
So
No,
yeah.
I think that brings us to a perfect close. There's no better platform than LinkedIn to do that. I'm sure you've already seen success. Of course, we are also seeing how to stack up technology to make on our existing products and platform to make it more productive. But yeah, I think very, very well said in terms of how do you use it to uncover more productivity. I think from an HR standpoint as well, how do you find the, how do you use technology to find the best hires? So yeah, I'd love to explore more, but thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much to both of you. That was a really insightful and interesting conversation to listen in on. And, the way you highlighted the importance of proactive hiring in building a strong talent pipeline is very crucial. Embracing diversity of talent and prioritizing hiring in prioritizing upskilling through cross learning across industries. I think that was most interesting. And I was also very intrigued by your conversation about the value of creating a culture where learning is something that happens organically through collaboration between industries and clusters that you talked about, which are in motion currently, and the breaking down of your traditional barriers and silos, and also, of course, how to use AI to make it more human centric. So, thank you to both of you, Manoj and Jyoti, for sharing your perspectives, and thank you so much to our viewers again for tuning in. So, this was hashtag Talent in Talks, the Talent Mindset Dialogue series, an initiative by the Economic Times in collaboration with LinkedIn. Stay with us for more conversations where we continue to explore how talent is redefining the future of work.